Clearing up misinformation has been the news media's job for a while. We ended up doing a lot of it during the pandemic, and now even after. Our latest attempt has put us in a back and forth with the local police department. Almost 1 year after former state representative Aaron Von Ellinger was convicted of raping a statehouse intern, how much has changed to keep it from happening to someone else? Yeah, the mountains may be calling, but we could just take you there from your couch. Let's go exploring by bike. We see Silver Mountain on 2 wheels and from 30 years ago. It seems a story we did earlier this week about a Caldwell police officer being exposed to fentanyl during an arrest has touched a nerve, which isn't what we were trying to do. We were trying to touch on and clear up what has become muddy waters for first responders, this idea that someone can overdose from just touching fentanyl. Caldwell PD put out a press release Monday night saying one of their officers did just that, in fact, have a physical reaction, going as far to say as he saved his own life after overdosing. So we looked into it. Actually, Joe Paris looked into it. And today, we're kind of addressing it again because of the response that we've seen to this and, very frankly, the lack of response. That's why we had to do this story.
Yeah, and to be very clear here, we want to just first and foremost say that the health and safety of our officers in our community, those are front and center of mind, and we're not saying that nothing happened to this officer. He very clearly had a medical situation that was very serious, and we're happy that there's a happy ending to this story. But to be clear, we didn't start out on this story with the intent to attack law enforcement in Idaho or anywhere, nor was the intent to downplay the officer's reaction to something that he was clearly experiencing while on duty and driving a patrol car. Our intent was to point out and explain what has been shown several times in several cities across the country to be mischaracterized response to a first responder coming into contact with fentanyl. So the press release from Caldwell Police on Monday evening, it stated, quote, "The officer began to experience dramatic symptoms related to a fentanyl exposure, including the initial stages of losing consciousness." Even the chief of police in Caldwell added, quote, "Not only did he save his own life, but he saved the suspect's life too by stopping the car when beginning to lose consciousness after overdosing." Well, we immediately thought about how that chain of events didn't add up based on several stories that KTVB has done, we've done as a team on the topic. And we weren't the only people to notice this. Several people on social media quickly pointed this out too. So the next day, we looked into it. An agency makes a claim, experts on the topic question it and labels it misinformation, and we try to separate the fact from fiction. So we did our extensive research, we found an expert to talk about this, and who told us that this likely wasn't a fentanyl overdose, but totally said something clearly happened. And we did try to ask Caldwell PD about it, but they didn't offer anyone to speak with us yet. So then yesterday, Caldwell Police posted a message on social media with a lot of references to the story we did here on the 208 on Tuesday. But most importantly, saying in the press release, quote, "The Caldwell Police Department remains firm in its summary of the facts from April 24th, that the officer found fentanyl on a shoplifting suspect. Within 20 minutes, he began to feel some types of symptoms, possible fentanyl exposure, pulled himself over, and got himself Narcan." Caldwell Police even went as far to share the body camera video of the officer calling into dispatch about a possible fentanyl exposure, pulling into a parking lot, getting out of the car, and removing his vest. And in that video, you can hear him say that his tongue is numb and he's feeling shaky. Neither of which, according to the experts we've spoken with, are actually symptoms of a fentanyl overdose. Again, though, very clearly, something did happen to this officer. And I talked to a collection of local and national doctors on the phone when looking into this story, and they all told me about the same thing. It's the same thing as the toxicologist told us in our story on Tuesday. So here's the deal. I'm going to skip the implications and innuendos here, and we're just going to make this clear. We do not want this to be an us versus them thing. Never have, never will. Like the police, though, we have a process. Claims were made, inconsistencies were pointed out by many on our team and informed members of the public, and we had a national expert dispute what he calls misinformation claims, and we detailed all the insight. So the research on fentanyl is out there. It is consistent. It is a very dangerous and serious drug that people overdose on daily, and we're going to leave you with this. The final quote from Caldwell Police, they said, quote, "To be clear, the Caldwell Police Department is not interested in rendering any sort of medical conclusion. We are police officers, not medical doctors." And, you know, Brian, it's a situation here that, unfortunately, it's a little bit of a sticky situation, but we've been in it now, and there's been a lot of local media agencies across the country that have gone in and out of this.
It's worth pointing out, too, that Caldwell Police made it clear they are done talking about this story, but should you change your mind or should they change their mind, we will listen to what they have to say. Thank you very much, Joe. You know, it's been about 2 years since former state representative Aaron Von Ehlinger, facing a House ethics suspension, resigned from office. And it's been about a year since a jury convicted Von Ehlinger of raping a 19-year-old statehouse intern. These two things both happened during the month of April, ironically, during Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And one might think that would be enough to spark some sort of change at the State House. At the time, the attorney for Jane Doe, Von Ehlinger's victim, says she noticed clear gaps in the legislature's, quote, respectful workplace policy on how to process these kind of complaints. And she tells Andrew Bartline, 2 years later, no progress has been made.
Ethics hearings to doxing to resignation, all ending in a criminal conviction. What played out at the Idaho State House after former state representative Aaron Von Ehlinger raped a 19-year-old state house intern was not normal.
As far as all of the harassment cases I've ever dealt with, it was one of the worst.
Erica Birch represents Jane Doe, the woman Von Ehlinger raped in March 2021.
Through my representation of her, I came to see how the legislature handled this whole process. Certainly not asking for perfection, but I think some real gaps in the policy.
Birch is talking about the State House Respectful Workplace Policy. It outlines how lawmakers are to act professionally, what constitutes harassment, and protections against retaliation.
It's considered to be a necessity, do you think?
Yeah, for sure.
But Birch says this policy
I could go on and on.
Needs review and revision.
The policy does not say, and should say, that any investigator investigating complaints of harassment should be trained on workplace investigations.
Additionally, the policy states any complaint filed will go under the complaining party's name, not the person the complaint is about.
That can feel punitive, like you've done something wrong by bringing forward a complaint. The legislature doesn't have an easy way of tracking when someone has more than one complaint lodged against them. We have high school age kids who are interning over at our legislature, and there's no reason to not have a policy that says, you know, as an elected official working at our state house, you shouldn't be asking out those teenage interns or volunteers.
That's not in writing in this?
It's not in writing. And had it been in writing, what happened to Jane Doe might not have happened.
Work has happened inside the State House to address these types of concerns.
Because of working directly with the victims and survivors, I took a special interest in the policy.
Senate Minority Leader Melissa Wintrow consulted the AG's office years ago.
We were still in the middle of COVID.
About the problems she wanted addressed.
So it's important that you have, neutral, well-trained, appropriate folks to actually do the investigation that can present findings. So then, the appropriate ethics committee or whomever that is can make a determination without, making the person who's been harmed go through a bunch of hearings.
Wintrow says the Legislative Council, made up of leaders from both political parties, made the policy in 2018. They would be in charge of any updates, too.
I think that there are people who are very much interested in really how do we improve.
It would be wonderful if our Idaho legislature was, held up as an example of this is how you can try to get it right. And you're not going to get it right in every circumstance, but we're trying our best to make improvements when we see that we need to make them. If there are no changes, that it opens the door to something like what happened to Jane Doe happening again. And that would be a tragedy. And it would be a tragedy that would have been easily preventable.
Birch says she's tried to get in touch with leaders at the State House, specifically those on that legislative council. She says Senate Pro Tem Chuck Winder has also expressed interest in, at the very least, giving the policy a review. And from Birch's perspective, Brian, she says it's just been far too long. It's been 2 years since this started. It's been a year since the conviction. She wants something to be changed because she thinks it can be made better for the next person if something like this was to happen again.
Especially since the attention that case got just 2 years and now a year ago from today. But I want to go back to that one spot where you mentioned the policy as it stands now. Anybody who complains, it goes under the complainant's name, not necessarily the person they're complaining about. I can understand this policy of, okay, protecting somebody who's innocent until proven guilty kind of thing. But I don't know. Is that how that's supposed to work?
Well, her concern with it is, let's say that there are 5 complaints against Brian Holmes. I don't know that if I look up Brian Holmes' name.
Right.
You would have to find the 5 people who've made the complaints against him and then connect those dots. So that's really her concern, is if there is multiple complaints against one party, shouldn't it be easy to know that, and shouldn't you want to know that?
All right, we'll see if they do make some changes. Thank you very much, Andrew. Grab your neon windbreaker, your printed spandex, because, you know, we're going mountain biking on Silver Mountain. Or maybe you were into grunge at that time. Back to the early 90s for today's Exploring Idaho. Back to now. We want to hear what you have to say. All you have to do is text us to the number on your screen, 208-321-5614. Include your name and the hashtag the 208. We may share some of them at the end of the show, so keep them clean, keep them concise, and keep them clever. It's these kind of spring days out there where every Idahoan seems to want to get off their couch and get outside into the warm sunshine. Greenbelt is busy, parks are bustling, foothills are lined with runners and bikers and walkers, and it's why it's a good time to throw it back a little bit, little TBT to June of 1993, when our Exploring Idaho team took us to Silver Mountain to enjoy some mountain biking with former KTVB reporter David Mills.
Kellogg, in the heart of Idaho's Silver Valley. It's home to the state's newest ski resort, Silver Mountain, and boasts the world's longest gondola. Already, this place has earned a reputation for superb skiing, but when the snow melts and the skis are in the closet, this year-round resort doesn't go to sleep. It's one of the Northwest's premier spots for mountain biking.
Okay, hop right in, put your feet up on the seat the long way.
There are a few better ways to spend a summer day than taking a nice, leisurely bike ride, but that's not exactly what we're in store for. Once aboard Silver Mountain's 3.1-mile gondola, you've got time to relax and enjoy the view, and it is spectacular. You can see for miles in every direction. Thousands of tourists come here every year just to enjoy this 20-minute ride, but for us, the adventure has just begun. 100 miles of trail traverse the mountain. If you're into mountain biking, this is the place for you.
Good morning. How you doing?
The technology has made it just more efficient. It's actually made the sport easier and more enjoyable for a wider range of people.
The right equipment makes a big difference. Some of the trails are rough and tough, and you'll want to make sure you're prepared. And don't forget your helmet. It's required equipment. The 6 main trails here vary. Some are easier than others. A couple will get you down the mountain quickly, while the longest, 22 miles, takes several hours.
This is the Big Creek Trail. This one's 18 miles long, goes from the Mountain House down past the Sunshine Mine and Big Creek itself and then follows the frontage road back to the base terminal.
One of the best things about biking here at Silver Mountain is that once you've taken the gondola to the top of the hill, the ride down is pretty easy. About 95% of it is on a downhill grade. Just about anybody can handle it, so long as you keep your bike in control.
We get quite a diversity of people up here because they can ride the gondola, from young to old to beginner, experienced, quite a variety because we have trails for everybody and a little bit of variety that even the hardcore riders really enjoy.
Speed is what I really like. Going down, completing a good fast run, and getting to the bottom without wrecking.
For me, just staying on the bike is challenging enough, much less hitting 30 to 40 miles an hour. It's easy to do on some of the smoother downhill grades, but you'll want to slow down anyway. There's plenty to see.
This is looking down into the Big Creek drainage. This is the Big Creek Golf Course, and looking on across one of the gulches, Montgomery Gulch, that goes up on the other side. All the little ravines here are filled with little housing projects like that from the mining days.
Depending on the trail you pick, some of the riding can be a little tricky. And while you should be keeping your eyes on the road, with scenery like this, it's not very easy.
It's pretty much the top of the world, you know? It's a beautiful place.
It doesn't get boring because things always change. The flora and the fauna, you know, is always moving, changing. The rocks are moving. There's different flowers, different times of the year, and there's always the wildlife and just the scenery to look at.
Today's new breed of mountain bikes have opened up a whole new form of outdoor recreation. It's a great all-around sport. It gives you the freedom to go where you want to go and see some country that is otherwise hidden.
Oh, I think it's tremendous. I can't see anywhere else that it's any better than this. As far as overall opportunities, the miles of roads that you can ride, as well as a superb system like this of getting up the hill and then getting down without as much effort.
And there's an added benefit.
This is the best kind of stress relief that man has found in my mind.
Well, of course, mountain bikes have obviously become more technologically savvy in the last 30 years or so. And you can still take those new mountain bikes to Silver Mountain this summer, but they're not going to be at Idaho's newest resort anymore. Tamarack takes that title after opening in 2004, 14 years after Silver Mountain opened. Silver Mountain opened in 1990, and you can mountain bike at Tamarack as well. Like many of Idaho's 18 ski resorts, they all have some sort of summer activity going on these days. Sadly, Silver Mountain doesn't boast the world's longest gondola, not gondola, gondola. We're going to go with gondola. It's 3.1 miles long, which is apparently now in Serbia. That's the longest one. Now it's over 5.5 miles long. And Silver Mountain does have the longest gondola in the United States, just not for long, according to Steamboat Resort in Colorado. They're building their own, the Wild Blue Gondola, which will be the fastest and the longest 10-passenger gondola in the States, which is slated to open next winter. And if you're looking for the soundtrack to this Exploring Idaho series, we'll try to put something together because that music is tight. We'll see you in a bit. So the St. Jude Dream Home giveaway was a huge success once again this year. For the 19th year, a construction company which builds and donates a house to be given away, and people buy tickets for $100 a piece and they try to win it. This year, it's a 2,600 square foot, 3-bed, 3-bath home in Kuna. Early yesterday morning, 27,777 tickets went on sale and they sold out in 9 hours, which led to Mike in Twin Falls to ask this question. As quickly as the tickets sell out, why don't they sell more Dream Home tickets? Well, Mike, I guess the goal is to find that kind of happy medium. Enough tickets to raise money, but not enough that they're not a hot commodity. They want people to be driven to this and be, I guess, inspired by it. And over the years, we have sold more tickets, by the way. This year, 27,777 sold out in 9 hours. Last year, 22,777. That just took 3 hours and 74 minutes. The year before, in 2021, we sold 17,707 in 4 hours. Every year, we do increase the number. Back in 2019, we only were selling 11,077 tickets. Those took 4 days to sell out. So the number of tickets has gone up. 16,700 in just the last 5 years, which is quite the jump from the 6,536 tickets we sold way back in 2004. It's obviously a popular fundraiser here in Idaho, which raises a lot of money very quickly. This year, $2,777,000 and $700, I should say. $77,700. Again, just 9 hours, which is a great gain for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, who's doing great things to fight childhood cancer. They also help families who are dealing with it. Every year, the value of the house also seems to go up. Like this year, the Berkeley Building Company apparently has this house appraised at $750,000. So turning a $100 ticket into a $740,900 profit seems like a pretty good investment. But is it that simple? Do they just hand you the keys, you move in on June 5th, the day after the drawing? Dave wanted to know. People are saying you have to pay around $300,000 in taxes up front if you want or if you win the St. Jude house. Is this true? Well, kind of. The St. Jude website makes it clear the taxes on the home are the responsibility of the winner, and the IRS requires it must be paid when you accept the prize and before St. Jude can just sign over the deed. So what would those taxes look like? Well, we asked an accountant about it, and he told us winning a home like this would likely put you into the upper tax bracket since it would be considered income. So keeping it as simple as possible, let's say you're single and you make $100,000 a year. Well, you add $750,000 to that and you're now being taxed on an income of $850,000 for 2023. And that means you'll have to pay $174,238.25 plus 37% of anything above $578,125, which is the minimum income that would put you into that upper tax bracket. So $174 or $174,000, $238.25 plus 37%, that's $100,000. All of that adds up to $274,000, $274,832, right? Does that make sense? You add the 5% tax in Idaho, that's another $49,000. So yes, you're paying $324,132 up front if you win the home. But you're winning a home that's worth twice that much, and it's for the kids. Very quickly, Sven wants to know if there were any consequences for Priscilla Giddings, who doxed Jane Doe. Yes, she was censured and removed from the Commerce and Human Resources Committee, and of course, she lost the election for lieutenant governor. Our Idaho legislatures, Chris Meridian says this: our Idaho legislators are policing everyone's morality except their own. We'll see you tomorrow.